Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS. This is episode 887. Right, we've got a great guest. We've got Adam Weeks for Cirrusinfluence. We're going to be discussing all things influence, market visibility in 203 and 204. If you're selling your services, your products, your plugins, this is going to be a great show. I've been looking forward to it. So, Adam, would you like to quickly give us a kind of 20-30 intro about yourself and the company?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. It's an honor. I've been loving your podcast for a while now. I come from the world of education. My background, I was a school teacher, principal, and then I always had WordPress as sort of something in the background, side projects, that kind of thing. But then the pandemic happened and I decided not to be a school principal anymore. And what am I going to do? Jonathan Wold, he bugged me about helping him out with some post status work. So I have done sponsorships with post status, and I met Bob. So Do the Woo did some stuff for Bob. And during that experience, and I still help them both out. During that experience, I realized that a number of companies in WordPress, especially product companies, had this problem of exposure, distribution, and they may not want to put all their eggs in one basket, or they just need help with getting exposure, getting marketing. And it's one thing to do advertising where you just pay for it, and create your own content. Those are good things to do. But how do you grow your influence? And Cirrusinfluence, the clouds that are way up high, those are the Cirrus clouds. And influence, that's what we want for all of our companies. So I partnered with a good friend of mine, Nick LaRose. He had been at XWP for a while. And so the two of us said, hey, let's do this. We have a number of people that we think can use this. And so, yeah, let's help them grow their influence. And yeah, happy to talk more about that.
Oh, that's great. And I've got my great co-host, Kurt. Kurt, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure thing, Jonathan. My name is Kurt Von Onen. I run an agency called Mañana No Mas, and we focus largely on membership and learning websites for folks.
That's great. And like I say, we're going to be talking about how you market yourself in 2023-24. It's a changing landscape. Adam's got some great insights. Should be a great interview. But before we go into the main meat and potatoes of the show, we've got a couple messages from our major sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments, folks.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. I'd like to point out that we've got some great deals from the sponsors, plus a curated list of the best WordPress plugins and services that will save you a load of time trying to find the right plugin for your client's project. What more could you ask for? Probably a lot, but that's all you're going to get from that particular page. To find all the goodies, all you got to do is go over to wp-tonic.com/deals. That's easy, isn't it? wp-tonic.com/deals, and you'll find all the goodies there. Christmas is coming, so I'm generous. So there we go. So off we go on our journey. So I think you covered in some ways question one, really, Adam, with your intro. So let's go on to question two then.
Get into it.
So what do you think are the main benefits that your clients really get from the company? You know, what do you think, observing your clientele? You've been running this now for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the patterns, the main pain points that you see often when you're dealing with your new possible clients?
There's a number of different things that I really feel that we bring value. I like to think of it in this way. Can I tell you a quick story? Would that be okay?
Oh, I love my stories, Adam.
Little quick story. All right, so there's a guy, and he mows lawns. And he's great at mowing lawns. He buys all the tractors, all of the lawn equipment.
Well, you got to, haven't you, Adam? You got to buy your tractors.
You got to buy all your stuff. And so he gets his lawn mowing company up and running, and he gets his first client, and he does a great job. And he said, "Hey, while I was mowing the lawn, I saw that you have some, your gutters. They're kind of clogged. Would you like me to take care of that?" Oh, goes the homeowner. "Sure, yeah, I'd pay you to do that." "Hey, while I was up on your lawn, up on your roof, cleaning, I saw that some of the shingles were kind of amiss. Wouldn't take me much. I could fix that." "Oh yeah." "Hey, they'd pay for that too." "Hey, while I was up there, I also noticed that your chimney, like the mortar is just cracking. It's not great. I know how to do that." "Oh," the homeowner says, I'd love for you to. I'd pay for you to do that." Well, what's been happening this whole time, his lawn equipment that he spent a lot of money on has been sitting there, not getting any use. The investment in that is not happening. So to put all that together, how I connect these dots is that if you are building a product for WordPress, your best time is spent making sure it's the best product. The investment that you have there, do that thing. You can do your own marketing, your own PR. You can do all of that yourself. It's not rocket science. But where is your time and energy best spent? I would think that it would be with working with a company like us, where we're going to get you exposed, get your company out there to the different channels in WordPress.
Yeah, well, he sounds like a really good person, good expert on upselling. I had that on Tuesday. Kurt knows. I was in my car maintenance and they're upselling me consistently. I wasn't too happy about it, Kurt, was I? I was whinging about it, wasn't I?
You didn't seem too happy at the car dealership, Jonathan.
Well, they got a polite no the first time. They got a polite no the second time. When it got to the third time, it was getting a bit rough. When it got to the fourth time, I was feeling a bit aggravated, to be truthful, Adam. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this, Adam, because I'm sure you hear this quite a bit. I'm only interested in affiliate marketing or Facebook adverts, none of this influence stuff. If I don't get a direct sell from a placement, this is total waste of money. I'm not interested. Just affiliate marketing. That's all I'm interested in. And Facebook. How do you respond to that?
Those things are very attractive because they're easy to track. You put in this much dollar, in a Facebook ad campaign, you see those number of clicks come in Google. And my responses to that is, yes, do that. And what are you going to do? It's not an or, it's an and, depending on how quickly you want your company to grow. If you're fine just going slow, which I would say that if you're in business, you have a runway. And the way to either, you need to do a couple of two things, either extend the runway or add more fuel to your jet plane and go faster. The way to do that is by getting more eyeballs in front of people. On top of that, the other thing I will add is that a goal for a company is to build fans. You want people to love your stuff. You don't build fans by doing affiliate marketing. You might get some sales, but you're not going to grow people who care about you and think, oh, they are an influential person in this space.
Yes, we all need friends, don't we, Adam?
We need. Oh, so that's another good thing is I think about WordCamps in this way.
I don't. I'm not going anymore.
I know.
I've given up, mate. I'm marked as a target because of my English humour and my sarcasm, Adam.
Which
Certain
I love.
people that go to WordCamps do not appreciate my type of humour, Adam.
And that is a tragedy. And I'll put other events in it as well. What I would say is that you've heard the old saying is that business gets done on the golf course. So essentially, we don't have a golf course. The reason why that is that people like to do business with their friends, and it's difficult to make friends over the internet. It can be done, but I would say that those friendships are grown when you're in person. And that is another aspect to this, is that being in the same place together where you can actually talk about what's going on is also going to be a big part of a healthy strategy.
Yeah. All right, I'll give you that. Over to you, Kurt.
As I listen to Adam speak, it reminds me of that famous quote by Bob Berg, that says, all things being equal. I think it's all things being equal, people do business with people they like, know, and trust. Right. So I that's one of those business quotes that just constantly gets, respun. And to Adam's point, I've only been to a couple of WordCamps, but the more I'm exposed on these, podcasts and the Mañana No Mas podcast and the work I do with Lifter LMS, I'm walking through WordCamp and people going, hey, Kurt. And I don't even know who these people are. And at first
I saw it happen.
Yeah. At first it's a little creepy, but I'm looking at the growth I'm seeing this year and I'm going, well, the work's been worth it. You sow the seed and you wait for the harvest. But I think too many people are looking for that instant gratification. And it is a long game, right? So building brand and building reputation is ongoing work, and it's a long game. So just to expand on that question from that perspective, Adam, how do you approach people with the immediate gratification versus the long game chat? Because that's got to be part of the talk.
Yeah, no, there's been a number of discussions on what are the benefits of going to a WordCamp, because it's an incredible investment. It's very expensive to show up to a WordCamp, to sponsor a WordCamp. And it's funny, we think of the overnight success. We see companies once they have overnight success, but they didn't see the 10 years that went into becoming that overnight success. And that's why we are attracted by that. Hey, I put in $1 for advertising and I got $2 in sales back. That's great. If you can do that all day long, but that's not typically how business works. It's a long game.
Cool. Well, I need to switch gears on us a little bit and move to the next question. And that is, and maybe your perspective is going to be different. So I'm hoping that you have some insight here. There's a lot of, it seems like if we're reading X and we're looking at podcasts, it seems like there's like this growing discontent at different areas or sections in the WordPress community. And you have this unique perspective kind of dealing with different people. What are your thoughts on kind of like where this is, what's happening and where it might be leading?
Are we calling it X? Have we gave up on Twitter?
Oh, I gave up on Twitter. I'm with X.
we're calling it
I
X.
refuse. I'm going to keep saying Twitter. I think X sounds like a bloody porn site, doesn't it?
Can you?
It's about right though. Really, it has become a bit of a porn site, isn't it?
If you can tweet at someone, can you X at someone?
It doesn't sound right, does it?
No.
It doesn't roll over the tongue, really, does it?
So Kurt, are you speaking specifically to the WordPress community?
Yeah. I would say, we covered on our podcast at the roundtable last week. We were talking about, folks that are saying that, the leader of WordPress isn't following the WordPress code of ethics or code of behavior, right? And there's certain people that are really calling out for that. And there's other people that are saying, well, this whole blocks thing has been a disaster. We need to go to classic press. And then there's other folks that have other concerns. There's There's a lot with alternative lifestyles, diversity, equity, inclusion. You could just break things into all kinds of social columns. And then it just seems like it's getting, I don't know if it's a social media presence, but it seems like it's been exacerbated lately. And we were wondering if you had a different perspective of it.
The first thing is that leadership is hard, especially servant leadership.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, the best model for leadership, is that as a leader, my role is to make sure that my people have what they need when they need it. And it's difficult. And not to excuse bad behavior at all, but this isn't an easy thing to do. And for us to sit back and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda, that was a terrible thing. I don't love being in that position, because I'm not in the shoes of the person that to be critical of. At the same time, we do not endorse bad behavior. So I think my encouragement to leadership is be better. That is an encouragement for everyone. Don't screw up as best you can. But the screw ups will happen. We are for this PR perspective, a large part of what we do is crisis response. When a bad thing happens, when you have to give bad information to your customer base, what do you do? And I would say, when there is a tragedy, when there is a bad thing that happens, you have an opportunity to grow your influence. And I didn't see that happen in kind of this latest, X Twitter debacle.
Yeah, that's, such a cautious answer. I actually really appreciate the way you maneuvered that. Leadership is hard.
It's difficult.
It is. But I also like what you said there. And that is, in leadership, you're going to screw up, you're going to make mistakes. And then it's how do you acknowledge the fault and move forward? It's always that momentum, right? Momentum being one of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. You're like, how do we keep the momentum going the right way and not have it, boomerang?
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's when you do a bad thing, you have a choice on what kind of response you're going to make. I'll give you another quick story. I heard this. I really liked it. There was a group of, 2 or 3 people. They went to a smoothie shop, and this lady, she was enjoying her smoothie, and she was sipping on her smoothie, and one of the blades from the blenders was in her cup.
Oh dear.
Which is bad for a smoothie shop. She goes over and she tells the person at the front counter, like, hey, look what I just found in my smoothie cup. At that time, the person behind the counter had 2 choices. And I call this, am I getting balloons behind my, what is going on?
Yeah, I'm very impressed. I can't do that, actually. There's a few people that like me, put me on a balloon and send me off. But,
what is going on? Sorry, for those of you on audio, my screen is...
You need to go to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel and subscribe, and you can see the balloons.
I don't know how that happens. That was bizarre. So this person has 2 choices. What are you going to do? Something bad has happened. A blade is in this smoothie cup. You have 2 options. One, it's kind of this token, I think of it. It's the end of the world token. You can play that token. Or you can play the it's not a big deal token. Unfortunately for this smoothie shop, they picked it's not a big deal. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's a free smoothie on us. If you take the it's not a big deal token, your customer is going to take the opposite token. So you can pick one and they're going to pick the other. So in her case, it was the end of the world. And she was pissed at how they did not take care of her in this smoothie situation. Whereas if the person had picked the other token, It's the end. I am so sorry. We're going to stop all the smoothie machines, stop them all right now, clean them out. We're going to inspect every single one of them. This cannot happen. It is unacceptable at our place. And what we want to do as an apology for it, here's 10 free smoothies. Come back. It's the end of the world. Oh, that's okay. Thank you so much. Because your customer is going to take it's not a big deal. How this applies to Twitter is this, and what's happened with leadership is if you say it's not a big deal and it's dismissive, everybody will and did say it's the end of the world.
I'm with you. Jonathan, I'm going to pass it back to you, sir.
Yes. I see where you're coming from. I'm not totally sure. I see where you're coming from. I had a thought in my mind and it left me rapidly. It's happening quite regularly as I get older, Adam. These thoughts come in my mind and they leave.
A good PR person could probably keep you on track with a good agenda.
I know what I was going to ask you, Adam. So, obviously when it comes to online influence, PR, and you advise companies and that, isn't there always a contradiction at the core of it in some ways? Because I've been thinking about this for the past few months, that obviously to be an influencer, and I don't really like...
It's a terrible term.
It is in a way it is, and you can let things annoy you or not, but everything's about influence, isn't it? But people want you to review products, talk about their products, be on people's radar because you've got an audience. And the bigger the audience, or sometimes it can be a small audience, but a very focused audience, or it can be a big audience, less focused. But the more sophisticated people understand a focus audience can be more worthwhile than a larger. But when you're talking about a larger audience, they want the biggest audience possible. But normally, unless you're in educational content, to get a large audience, it's normally that you want to be you want to be edgy, you want to be on the edge, you want to be a bit cutting about your content, because that's what generates an audience. But that's the last thing that somebody that wants to sponsor you or put an advert. That's the last thing they want, because they don't want to be tarnished with anything that's a bit edgy. So am I on the right track, or am I deluding myself? That, to me, there's always a constant strain there.
I would say there's a constant reason to be vigilant and understanding your audience. So the term aligned incentives, I think, is important. So you have the media outlet, and they need to be entertaining, and I would argue that beyond entertaining, bring value to their audience. So being entertaining is often edgy, but it doesn't... I'm getting the thumbs up thing. I don't know what...
I'm very impressed with it, Adam.
So excited right now. Yeah. So so the media outlet needs to be true to their audience. And you have these people who want to generate influence. Hopefully they have something to also share with that audience. And that's what I would say, is that you have to be cognizant of what your audience wants, and at the same time be valuable to your sponsors.
Yeah, I see where you come from, but I don't really care fuck what my audience wants. I just do this podcast to meet people, and I like a chat, and it's grown into something a bit bigger because I've just cammered away for almost 8 years. But I don't, the sponsorship I get just about covers the costs and covers a little bit, but I don't make a living out of it. I just use it to promote myself and promote my own influence.
But I'm going to push back a little bit that you don't care about your audience. That can't be true. You're doing this today because
I don't even know who the audience is, because half the time they don't. Oh no, that's true. I go to word camps and had people come up to me and say, "I've been listening to the show for years," and they talk to you like they know you. I don't know them from Adam, but it's really hard in podcasting to get any kind of feedback from people.
That's true. The feedback is difficult, but at the end of the day, as a content creator, you do want your content to be consumed. We don't want to just speak out into the void. We want people to pay attention. We want it to make a difference. And I think that is where the aligned incentive comes from.
Radio. I think you got something to add to this, Kurt?
I was just thinking I only have 70 subscribers on my YouTube channel after 5 years. It's ticking me off.
It's a difficult one, but I was being a bit conscious. I was bear baiting here a little bit with you, Adam. Obviously, I do respect the audience to some extent. What I meant in a more serious tone is that I don't plan the content. I don't plan it all out. I don't know how the guest is going to respond. You seem up for it. We had Ollie last week on the show. He's been on the show a couple of times. He was great. He's a polished marketer, talking about his startup. It was a great chat, wasn't it, Kurt? He's a great guy. You're up for it. Some guests aren't. I sometimes wonder why they even agree to come on the show, but they never come back. There's no point in asking them back, if you know what I mean. But I don't plan it all out because I don't know what I'm going to be dealing with every interview.
Well, I think it's also goes to the audience likes naturally who you are. You are the content, and you shouldn't try to be something that you're not, because then the people who come here, they will leave. Your authentic self, like that is what they're here for. They want a bit of that edginess. And if a sponsor is so touchy, they don't make that they're going to leave, then they don't make a good sponsor. You need a sponsor who also likes your authentic self.
Yeah, I think that, what you see, what you hear is what you get at a WordCamp. I think most people, I think Kurt would agree. I know it's horrendous, Kurt. I don't know how you deal with it, but I'm very... the way I am on this podcast is the way I am in general, isn't it, Kurt?
That is a fact.
God, that's a nightmare, isn't it? I think it's time for us to go on our mid-break. It's been a great chat so far. We've got some other great questions. We will be back in a few moments, folks. Back, folks. Just want to point out, if you want to support the show, why don't you become a WP-Tonic partner? We host learning management systems and Buddy Boss websites. That's what we specialize. If you've got a project and you want to support the show, why don't you host it on WP-Tonic and show some support to the show? We've got some great deals. To find out more information about it, all you have to do is go over to WP-Tonic/partners, WP-Tonic.com/partners, and sign up and host your client's website with us. We offer a ton of great reasons why you should do that. So let's go straight back into it, folks. I'm a bit chirpy today. I think I've had about 15 cups of coffee this morning. God, I went for my walk. I was freezing. It was bloody freezing. I went for my 3-mile walk, and it was freeze my tits off. Off we go. Another interesting thing, I don't know if you've been thinking about this. I think one of the biggest changes I've seen over the past 3 or 4 years in WordPress is when I entered in the WordPress space around 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm. And I think I started this podcast around 2015, 2016. Was it all the people well known in the WordPress space, and the companies were all North American based. Pippin Williamson, Chris Lemmer. There was a big group around Genesis Studio Press. There was a big group around that. What I've seen lately is it's become much more internationalized. The biggest coding shops are in the Indian subcontinent, in Eastern Europe. It seems to become much more internationalized. How does that affect you, how you operate? And would you agree with what I've just said, that it seems to have become much more internationalized over the past 4 or 5 years?
Oh, definitely. How it affects me, I have to sometimes take meetings at odd times of day. My calendar gets filled up with, I got to wake up earlier, going to, depending on where our clients are. Another thing that's interesting is you also need to pay more attention to global news. A number of our clients have been affected by what's happening in Israel, and it feels a little disingenuous to just hop into, if you haven't talked to them for a while, hey, I need a thing, or are you doing whatever, without also acknowledging their family may be going through a tremendous struggle or something. So I am more cognizant of what's happening around the world because we have clients who are in places that are dealing with news that I may not be aware of.
It's one of the beauties of living in North America. You've got 2 enormous oceans on either side, haven't you?
It does insulate us a bit.
Yeah, I spent till my mid-50s in Britain. It's a very small country. So over to you, Kurt.
Thanks, Jonathan. I don't want to cloak things like I don't know what happens, Adam, because you and I have already worked together and we've shared guests. And it's been a really good, rewarding kind of interaction for me. You've put me with some really good matched up guests for the things that I do. But outside of, referring people to podcasts and stuff, what are some tools that Cirrusinfluence uses, or how do you find your success day to day in the things that you do?
Absolutely. So Black Friday is a big one. We help make sure that our clients get on all the Black Friday lists because, again, you can spend your time doing that. It's not magic or rocket science, but we've done the work to find all of the lists, and then we get their clients on those lists. We also help we keep a pulse on what is happening, where the conversations are happening. And when our clients, their expertise matches that conversation, we try to encourage them to insert themselves. And, for instance, the Tavern is an excellent example where you can't buy ads on the Tavern. You can't sponsor them, but there is a comment section. And that's a really good way to be a part of that conversation, is hopping into the comments there, or what's happening on Twitter, or what's happening in...
You're a very brave person if you're going to comment on the Tavern. That's spicy. It's always been a bit spicy, the Tavern comments. Endless
get in there.
entertainment I've had over the years reading the Sarki's comments on a pissed off developer.
That's how you grow the influence, though, is that you do need to... So there's another aspect of how we can be helpful. Many people in WordPress are not comfortable on a microphone being public. They may be more on the introverted side of this, which creates an opportunity for someone like me, who I'm fine with that. I'm ready to go. Let's go talk. Let's have a conversation. And everybody here on this little window, I would say, also does not struggle with that. But many people do. What we do is we help you be more confident, know that you have something of value to share, to add to the conversation, because you are an expert in this field. And we do some coaching along that as well.
Awesome. And just to expand, I have kind of this question in the back, and that is, when I did PR back in 2008, 2009, 2010, there was still a lot of old school PR, like PR.com, PR Newswire, PR, like real PR, like you just put out an article on behalf of a company and you pray some magazine picks it up. Is that still a thing, or is that?
There are very few pure PR agencies anymore. And that's why it's a and conversation. It's not a you have to do only PR. If you're only doing PR, your leads will dry up. It is a combination of paid placements. As an example, a number of media outlets are doing Black Friday roundup videos. And, they do expect to get paid for some of those because those are paid placements. Again, we find them. We find what is going to be the best media outlet to align with their brand and what's the best deal out there. Say, okay, we've got a budget of X, Y, and Z. Great. Then we bring those to you. And again, it's still a pain in the butt to manage all of those things. We do the intake. We find out, we fall in love with our client's product. We learn everything about that so that we can speak on their behalf. And that would be an example. So correct, PR is not the same. You do need a mix of traditional marketing, put your own content out there, affiliate links, advertising, as well as PR. And then that crisis response is another part of it that's interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just clicked something in my head. And it was like, as you were talking, I'm like, everything that you bring to the table probably has a unique format or a unique something to go with that, whatever that platform or that initiative is. So there's all that work on the back end to try and fit those Lego pieces together. Because if the Lego doesn't fit, it don't fit.
And it can't be, has to be genuine. So that's going to be that part of what is your brand and how do we help you grow your brand? Keeping that in mind at all times. And again, someone who is building a product, that may not be their strength. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be.
Yeah. And I found a lot of founders, when I talk to them, they're so deep in their own mess. Sometimes it's hard to pull back and see it like someone else from the outside would see it.
Right.
So
that's a really good point.
Good to have that third person.
It's difficult to remember what it was like to not know something. Of course, this is why
I don't have that problem.
I forget it all the time, but we do. We even when the lingo that we use acronyms for things, and people, I don't know what you're talking about, and we forget. Oh, some people might not know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but is there any kind of recently any client work, any clients? Obviously, you don't have to name them because obviously a lot of the time it's confidential. But are there any clients you worked with recently that you've done some work for them that comes to mind that you could share with the audience that you were quite proud of that you got?
Yeah, I would say, one of the ones that's been interesting, and Kurt, you had a nil on your podcast. They have an interesting problem, opportunity / something. So Multi-Collab is an interesting product. It solves a problem that a lot of developers have where you can't collaborate in the editor. Right? That's that you do your work on Google Docs. Everybody kind of puts their 2 cents in, suggestions, comments, editing, and then you've got to copy and paste that, put it into the editor. And that's a workflow for a lot of people. What Multi-Collab does is skips the Google Docs step and puts all of it right there in the editor. Now, the interesting part of this is that that's on the roadmap. That's on Gutenberg's roadmap. What happens when the main, parts of your product are going to be, we call it Sherlocked. I don't know. Have you heard the term Sherlocked before?
No, I haven't, but maybe Kurt has.
No, I'm up for an education today.
Sherlock, if you've been Sherlocked, it come from a Mac where there was
It sounds delicious, though, Sherlock.
Sherlock. No, like to be like it's like Sherlock Holmes. There was a company that would it was a plugin for Mac where in the upper right there's the little spyglass and you can search your Mac for everything. And that was a product called Sherlock. Well, Apple saw that. It's like, wow, that's really useful. Let's steal that. And now we call that Spotlight. And so people were pissed because this company was Sherlocked. Basically, Apple took away their entire product. So that's the question. Is multi-collab getting ready to be Sherlocked? I would argue no. And what we talk about is on iOS or Android, you used to have these flashlight apps. Do you remember flashlight apps when the App Store first opened? No one has a flashlight app anymore because it also got, that part of the iOS. That feature is now baked into the operating system. Well, what if you are someone, and so all those flashlight apps went away. What if you have a weather app? Well, iOS has a weather app, or if you're a notes app. Well, to make sure that you're not Sherlocked, you need to make sure that you offer additional functionality and that you are the pro user. So the example here with multi-collab is, okay, this feature is coming to the roadmap, but for those who need something above and beyond, something more professional, because I'm a pro user, the weather being an example of, well, yes, Apple has a weather app or Android has a weather app, but I'm a snowboarder and I want to know exactly what the weather's going to be up on this mountain. So I have a special app for that, pro features. And that's the positioning for multi-collab, is the messaging around that is, yeah, if that feature is coming, but for those who want additional features or who are pro users, well, they're going to use multi-collab.
So how did you help them? Was it to work out what the pro version should be then?
Right. So we have given them some feedback, but it is also on that messaging to help them be consistent with that messaging. So when Anil goes on podcast, when people on his support team are talking to the public, they have a consistent message when they are asked that question, because we've put stuff up out there like, well, why do I need multi-collab? It's just coming to the roadmap. Well, one, it's not there yet. And two, this is going to be more feature packed and will have additional things that people can do beyond what's just baked into Gutenberg.
Quick, if you got a question before we go into our final question, Kurt?
I'm good, Jonathan.
I'm going to add another question before we go into our last question. Do you think the kind of digital, going to use that term again, influence, whatever you want to call it?
Sure.
I don't think we got any better term for the present moment. I don't know if you've got any suggestion, but I don't really think there is. And I think it's fair to keep using it. I just think it's got some connotations that have been placed on it. It's a bit like membership and teaching. There's a certain, how to put it in words, a certain way of online marketing that's diminished membership websites, which is very fair to everybody else. But how do you see the landscape of influence? Do you think it's changing? Do you see any patterns that you've observed that might continue or mature in the next 12 months, 18 months? Anything on you've been thinking about?
In its current form, it is still a very new way to market. We've always had, in some way, influencers, people who would make a difference. That's why when you'd have a race or something, hey, we want you to, put that hat on after the race or whatever it is. So there's been influencers for a very long time, but not in this lifestyle influencer area, not in as many. We have a lot more people who consider themselves influencers than we've ever had. People would be remiss to dismiss the power of an influencer. When we discuss PR and you think of, oh, wow, a good PR company, we're trying to get our stuff into the New York Times or on Vanity Fair or, you know, something like that. Well, if you have a influencer with a really big following, which one's more valuable? Is the Vanity Fair or someone with 5 million Instagram followers? WordPress doesn't have those same type of numbers. And that's why, Kurt, when you say, hey, I've only got 70 people subscribing to my YouTube channel, if you have 70 people in a room with you that are all engaged and the right audience, 70 is a lot, and valuable. And that's what I would say are influencers. The numbers, the metrics are different for influencers and WordPress because we're not going to see those huge numbers, but we don't need to. WordPress as a project, the number of people that really care about this thing, it's at most maybe, I don't know, what do you think, 10,000 people? And many of them, not English speaking. So I think the metrics are different. And for us to expect that, what is viral in one industry does not look viral at all in another. And you can have, if you get a post and it's on LinkedIn or X or whatever, and it's a WordPress type thing, if you get 10 people to comment on it, that's a pretty big deal. Especially if they're 10 different people and they're engaging in the conversation. In other places, 10 is nothing.
Yeah, definitely.
Good any suggestion? I was thinking, example, Paul from WP-Tonic. I always think he's kept his reputation, and I respect what he's done with his YouTube channel. Matt Medeus, he can be a bit spicy and a bit of a handful, but I think he's got credibility, and he's tried to do things the right way. I haven't agreed with every word that's come out of his mouth, and he probably would say the same about me. But I think he's got credibility. There's other people which I won't name because I don't think it's appropriate. I really haven't got the energy to get involved with a Twitter storm and all that crap. That I don't think I've got any credibility. Got any advice about if you're in this area, because I'm in it, because I like chatting with people and I'm also in it to promote my business, basically. Mm-hmm. How do you keep your credibility? I know it's a strange question, but I think you know where I'm coming from.
It goes to being authentic. And being, don't try to be something that you're not. Don't try to be controversial if there's nothing to be controversial about. Yeah. But just being authentic. I think it's also important that we're willing to engage with people again. For instance, and here's a question. Maybe there are certain people that you have had bad interactions with in the past.
Never. That would never happen, Adam.
Is your opinion of them forever? Do they get a second chance? Would you be willing to try it again? And there is a burn me once, but do we always have a bad opinion?
I think it's more to do with hypocrisy. There's some people that are totally different in private than what they are, their public persona. It's quite shocking when you come across them. I mean, really, really fundamentally different, and you wonder, and it's always a shock when you come across those. You wonder how they can maintain it. Because, I am, because I just couldn't do it. I just haven't got the mental capacity to be different than what I am on the show, But it's always shocking when you come across those individuals. Is that making sense, Adam?
It does. I guess I push back on hopefully we are all growing and becoming better at what we do, and people have screwed up in the past. Don't let them hurt you again is, I think, a good boundary to have. But I think in this industry where the community is so small, it's not great to write off people forever.
No, obviously you work with Jonathan well. Jonathan's a fantastic individual, top quality person. Always been extremely fair with me. He's just a quality guy. He's a friend of the show. So when you mention that you work with Jonathan, that's great news because he's just a great guy, isn't he? He's got a lot more patience than I've got. So this gets to the final question, my favourite. So obviously I'm from the UK. I've been living in America for 15 years now. I'm a joint citizen. But I was a viewer of Doctor Who, the TARDIS.
Sure.
So if you could transport yourself through a time machine back to your early days of your career, maybe your teaching career, whatever, and you could give yourself one tip, one insight, have a little chat with yourself, what would you tell yourself?
No one's going to do it for you. You don't need permission from anyone to do the thing that you're interested in. I think it's be curious, but don't wait for someone to say, yeah, you can do that. I felt like I was often waiting, like, well, I don't want to, I need, no, be courageous and go and follow those rabbit holes, follow your curiosity. And I don't think I did that enough. I was waiting for someone to give me permission to be successful.
Great advice. So Adam, what's the best way for people to find out more about you, your great company? Hopefully you'll come back in the new year for another chat. I've really enjoyed it. You've shown your skill by dealing with me so diplomatically.
It was fun.
It was. We had a bit of a spar and you dealt with me very easily. Very impressed. It's so easy to deal with me, actually.
Well, I used to be a school principal, so
I'm a naughty child at heart.
Angry
There's
parents.
no harm in me. There's no real harm in me. I'm just an idiot.
Not at all.
People actually think I'm intellectual, actually. I've had people... I think it's just it's ridiculous, isn't it? I'm thick as two planks. So there we go. So what's the best way for people to find out more about you and the company?
Find me on I'm on the old Twitter, X, whatever you call it. LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of good time. I think it's the social network for business. Post status Slack. I'm also on the WP Minute Slack. But yeah, Cirrusinfluence.com. You can find us there, and we'd love to connect. If there are any companies who are saying, hey, I could use some more influence, we'd love to help them out.
That's great. And Kurt, what's the best way to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Anything online that is Mañana no Más generally ties to me. And I'm on LinkedIn almost every day, like Adam. So, and I'm the only Kurt Von Onen there. So if you find Kurt Von Onen, you got him, connect, and we'll have a conversation.
And so what's the podcast about, Kurt? What's the best way for people to find out more about your podcast?
The podcast is distributed on like 12 different channels. So the most popular is on Spotify. And so if you go to Spotify and you search up Mañana no Más, chances are you'll see my bicycle there or a picture of my mug in AI. And we focus on leadership, entrepreneurship, a little bit of wellness and fitness that goes with business. And we really just try to keep it conversational. We just free form it for 40, 45 minutes and let people spotlight themselves and their skills.
Yeah, so show some love for Kurt. Go over and subscribe to his podcast. It sounds great. We will be back next week. We've got some great guests coming up. We're coming to the end of the year. It's been an interesting year. We've got some great guests coming up. We're going to finish strong, I feel. I've really enjoyed the chat with Adam. It's been really great. We will be back next week. See you soon, folks. Bye.